The next item of business is members' business debate on motion 15855 in the name of Christine Graham on men's sheds. And this debate will be concluded without any questions being put. Would those members who wish to speak in the debate please press your request to speak buttons, and I call on Christine Graham to open the debate for around 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. Let me thank all who signed my motion and are taking part in the debate, and those now coming into the gallery, attending from men's sheds across my constituency and other parts of the Borders, Peebles, Galashiels, Lauder, Hoyt and Eyemouth. In fact, the Borders has 10% of all men's sheds in Scotland and 19% of Scotland's members. Now, it may seem, because of this explosion of men's sheds, that it's a new phenomenon, but it's no such thing. In fact, the first recorded men's shed was in Tongala, Victoria, Australia in 1998, and the first in Scotland in West Hill, Aberdeenshire in 2013. And according to the very helpful Scottish Men's Shed Association website in Scotland, there are 106 open sheds, 58 in development, with 1,612 members, though even as I speak, this may have been surpassed. While I'm on the topic of the website, it's a great place to go if you're interested in joining or even starting one. And that information I put on the record for our colleague Ken Hughes, our current Deputy Chief Executive, who's retiring today, and he may want to look at the website for something to do with his time. There is a map of existing sheds in Scotland. It tells you how to start from the moment the idea takes root in your head, through publicising locally and gathering support, setting up a steering group, developing a constitution, to registering as a charity, to how successfully access funding through what's called a dragon's den attitude. The so-called so what tests, for example. So what if it's better than sitting in the pub of an afternoon drinking? So what if it's better than couch potatoing, I made up that word, in front of the afternoon telly, and so on. Generalising, we know that men perhaps aren't so good at sharing their worries and concerns with others. And not everyone plays golf or is a member of a club. So the sheds have given men and women, for example, Peebles does not bar women, but mostly men, a place to gather, make, chat, have a laugh, make plans for the shed. All good for body and soul. And the wife or partner might be glad of a wee break from them too. There are problems, of course, with money, not membership, but most of all in my experience with premises. I know both in Lauder, which temporarily has a room in the Lauder Leisure Centre, not really a permanent solution, should begin their activities there in the next fortnight. Peebles, the former ex-servicemen club they've just secured, and Hoyt has secured a former mill at a peppercorn rent. And let's face it, in most of our rural towns and villages, there unfortunately will be plenty empty premises a-going. It takes time and effort, but you know, I think this is the making of a men's shed. The fight for facilities and funding pulls the men together from the start. It's theirs, of their making and their shaping. Because there is no one-size-fits-all, no predetermined format. It's up to the members, and that's exactly how it should be. And those members have diverse skills. The retired accountant and the retired joiner, they're both equally useful. What they do is up to them. For instance, Gala Men's Shed has made 60 feeders for red squirrels and furniture repairs for the Aberlour Trust. The benefits to the members and the appetite for sheds is reflected in the numbers. Peebles Shed, in its relative infancy, already has 78 members. The benefits to health and to well-being, to remaining active in mind and body, cannot be overstated. Good for individuals, good for the public purse. And you know, the name shed is so appropriate. My late father, with 5 children corralled in a small council house, took refuge and sanctuary in his small green wooden shed at the bottom of the garden. There he kept all his tools, and that's where he made our sleds and bookcases, which were, I believe, and to this day, are indestructible. They weren't very functional, but they were indestructible. More importantly, it was his shed. With the door open, he would sit admiring the growing vegetables, with the Sunday papers and his cup of tea. He always had to read them before the rest of us. Rain or shine, taking a moment away from the hurly-burly of those 5 children indoors. And my late mother was happy to leave him to it. Domestic friction was reduced. When I think of men's sheds, though populated with many men, they have much in common with that little green shed at the bottom of the garden. In some ways, they're a place of sanctuary to make things, but also to chat and sit idly and perhaps share concerns. And perhaps they too reduce the potential for domestic friction. I'm just saying. And on that note, to lay any rumours that as a single woman of a certain age, I am frequenting men's shed with romantic intent, can I ensure the gentlemen in the gallery and beyond that, my interest is purely professional. Thank you.
Ian Gray, followed by Bruce Crawford.
Thank you very much, and let me add my congratulations to Christine Graham for bringing forward this important debate. And it is important. I mean, the men's shed movement, I suppose, is a little tongue-in-cheek, and perhaps it should be, because it did start in Australia, as Christine Graham pointed out, where irreverence and irreverence about masculinity is pretty common. But it also plays, doesn't it, to those stereotypes of sheds and man caves to which those like Christine Graham's father find somewhere to retreat from family life. But of course, the men's shed movement is the opposite of those things. Firstly, it's very serious in its intent and its purpose, but it also is quite the opposite about retreating. It's not about retreating at all, but about coming out into the world. Because loneliness is, as a number of speakers have said, one of the biggest problems which men in particular face. We know how toxic loneliness can be. It's considered by the health authorities to be the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day in terms of the damage that it does to your health. And it is this serious issue that men's sheds deal with by creating a network of friends for those who participate, but also by connecting them again with their communities, because all the men's sheds do work with their communities. And we've certainly seen the strength of that in the men's shed movement in East Lothian. And indeed, all of our towns in East Lothian have men's sheds at different stages of development. Musselburgh has one, Dunbar does, Tranent, North Berwick. In Preston Pans, the men's shed is becoming a part of the Lighthouse Community Hub, a very successful community development in that town. And in Haddington, the shed has been doing some really useful work producing various things, furniture for the Meadow Park School for children with additional support needs. But surely.
Thank the member for taking intervention. Can I ask him, on the question of all the centres you're talking about opening up throughout East Lothian, what efforts are the men's sheds taking to encourage armed forces veterans to join men's sheds in the East Lothian area?
That was Maurice Corrie. Back to Ian Gray.
Well, let me answer that to a degree by turning now to the doyens of the men's shed movement in East Lothian, and those are the McMurray men's shed. David Dixon and his redoubtable shredders in McMurray claim to be the second men's shed in Scotland, and it would be very foolish to try and argue with them. They have 60 members, 35 of whom are active, and indeed a good many are indeed veterans, and that is a group that the men's shed have reached out to. Started 5 years ago, just 4 men, Leslie Kidd, the founder of the movement in East Lothian, with nothing. They now have everything, including a power tool workshop. They make all sorts of things, including the nameplate for my house on my garden gate. Although I do have to say that I have been told since the last time I was at McMurray Men's Shed, somebody has donated a pool table to them, and I believe that productivity has taken a very significant dive in terms of production. But look, you don't have to take my word for this, because Mary Men's Shed with Age Scotland made a tremendous short film telling their story and why the Men's Shed is so important to them. And you can find that on YouTube, or a link to it on my own Facebook page. Presiding Officer, I just want to finish by saying that we are all here to praise the Men's Shed movement, but we need to say gently to the Minister too that this movement does need support. It's had support from Age Scotland and East Lothian, Strive, the local third sector organisation, support it too. But government could do more to support this movement. The Minister is the exception that proves the rule, but government ministers are usually considered to be middle-aged men in suits. They should understand that they will soon become old gits in cargo shorts, and they will need a men's shed to go to. They should support this movement.
I don't think there's anything to segue from that, but can we have Bruce Crawford followed by Jeremy Balfour?
I've got my cargo shorts, and I'm certainly an old git. And I would just say to the members of the Men's Shed from the Borders, from experience, if Christine Graham is coming your way, please run or get on your bike as fast as you can. Yeah, but I think it's true, that for most people, it's, what they need is a sense of purpose in their lives. They need a sense of belonging. And whether that's achieved through their family, their work, supporting the local football team, volunteering, taking part in sports themselves, or even say it, political activism, all matters to them. It's that sense of purpose that can often fuel us to get us through the day, and it carries us on. However, though, as I think we all know, as we get into retirement years, and I'm probably getting into the... By the way, I'm not retiring, in no chance. We're all getting a bit older. I might get thrown out, but I'm not retiring. But it can often be a difficult phase of people's lives. A pair of hands and a mind that were once used productively are now looking for their next purpose. That change of direction can sometimes take a serious toll on the mental well-being of people, not to mention, of course, potentially a serious impact on relationships in the household. So I want to share a very short story about a man I know. It's a man of my own age who'd gone through this transition from working life to retirement, and like many people in these circumstances, he found it incredibly difficult to come to terms with no longer having the routine of a working day. I guess you could say, as others have said already in this debate, his purpose was lost. It was having a serious impact on this man. Mentally, he was becoming more and more depressed within himself, and at home he barely spoke to his wife. His mind was in that dangerous cycle of just existing in the world and no more. Then luck would have it. He fell ill and went into hospital. Now, why is that luck? You might ask that question in these such circumstances. Well, in that short time in hospital, he was able to meet with other men on the ward of his own age. They had a good blether together. He was able to play cards with them, other games. And by the time he was discharged, frankly, he didn't want to leave. So that impact of having that company in hospital had a profound impact on his overall well-being. When he got home, he was a happier man. His relationship with his wife greatly improved. The spark was reignited. Knowing that, what had lifted his spirits, he then went and signed up to his local men's shed. And here, this particular man spends his time with other men and other women, mostly around his age, where they use the materials and tools to put their hands and their minds to productive use. He now has that renewed sense of belonging, a regained sense of purpose. So I'm going to tell this story because it's what the Men's Shed, at their core, and its movement is all about. A way for men to find a sense of purpose with other men and other women in the same situation. Now, we've talked a lot in this place about mental health and how best to tackle mental health problems. And the Men's Shed movement offers at least some of the answers of how we can tackle the causes of ill health, particularly for men and women of retirement age. President Officer, earlier this year, I was honoured to officially open the Men's Shed in Stirling. And I'd like to thank a remarkable man called Tip Maher for the fantastic work he has done in establishing the Men's Shed in Stirling. In fact, President Officer, Because of my great age, I'm now proud to say I am a member of the men's shed in Stirling and have been for a number of weeks. It's situated in the creative Stirling. I'm just preparing for the time when I'm 80 or 90 and I decide to slow down. Situated in the creative Stirling's Creative Hub in King Street, Stirling's men's shed is a brilliant space for socialising, for building, fixing and creating. Not just the objects, but the people too. For its members, it's installed a sense of purpose and belonging, and I hope this brilliant organisation can reach out and have the same impact on many, many more men in future. Thank you.
Jeremy Balfour, followed by Emma Harper.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Can I also congratulate Christine Graham for bringing forward this debate this afternoon? Men's Sheds is vital in creating the socially connected society that we want and need. Men's sheds are places of sheds or otherwise where members can meet and pursue practical interests like woodwork, refinement skills, play pool, or simply put the world to right. While largely based in a shed or other building, they are a place where people can go out also on outings and meet with other men and women. Men's sheds are whatever members want them to be, and I think that in essence is the success on them, is that it's not a top-down model, it is very much a model of people deciding in their community what would help them and what would benefit them. Because loneliness does not discriminate on economic barriers or even age barriers. We were told recently that over 100,000 people in Scotland who are older are suffering from loneliness right now. This can be because of retirement, a change in medical or physical health for an individual. One men's group I was talking to within Edinburgh, when we were getting going, couldn't find many men to come. So what they went was to the wives and to the partners of the men to encourage them to send the men to go out. Because I think there is still within our society a difficulty for men, particularly perhaps older men, to be able to talk and discuss about bereavement or about loneliness or about other issues that we wouldn't want to discuss within the family. And this is where the importance of men's sheds really need to be stressed. They provide community, more than that. They provide meaningful community and real friendship. Age Concern produced a report in May 2017 where they surveyed members from multiple men's sheds across Scotland. Overwhelmingly, they found that what the men valued was having banter, fellow shedders, and people they could simply spend an afternoon or an evening with. They valued the individual rather than the activity because they felt needed and loved. An example of a local shed here within Lothian is Mayfield Men's Shed, who meet on a Tuesday and Friday morning. The shed is just one of many that we have, fortunately, here within Edinburgh and the Lothians. Activities include refurbishing community benches to making and selling wooden chairs. They've been able to sell what they've made, again, adding further value to their work. Indeed, many shedders describe having a new lease of life because of their local shed helping them to embrace and enjoy this stage of their life. I would encourage every one of us to look into men's sheds, whether for yourself or someone you know. They are a fantastic way of connecting with others in the community and may for some be a lifeline to keep them going as the years progress. Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer.
Emma Harper, to be followed by Mark MacDonald.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to speak in this debate to raise awareness of the work and value of men's sheds, and I congratulate my colleague Christine Graham on securing this debate, which she has aptly described what men's sheds are all about. And I too welcome the shedders to the gallery this afternoon as well. Men's sheds respond to men's need for camaraderie and provide opportunities to work together in a way which contributes meaning to their lives. There are endless benefits to those who attend, from health to education. The Scottish Men's Shed Association say on their excellent website that they will strive to lobby MSPs, councillors and Scottish councils to support our Scottish Men's Shed movement, both financially, in kind and in policy making. And it's the funding that I'm going to focus on today. This grassroots community empowerment men's shed model is a new way of supporting the desired Scottish Government's national outcomes and the Community Empowerment and Engagement Asset Transfer Bill. And I agree with them that the men's sheds are one of the best ways for Scottish councils to save money and allow buildings to be transferred to the community to be used as men's sheds. The Scottish Government have recognised the Scottish men's sheds' efforts and in September 2016 allocated start-up funding. In addition to the funding from Scottish Government, men's sheds have found a wide variety of potential funds. Age Scotland's small development grants can be used for men's sheds. They have up to 15 grants of £1,000 each to award to men's sheds in Scotland. The Big Bike Revival in Scotland will give organisations the tools to engage with the community and the funding to repair old bikes. They are looking for 100 organisations across Scotland to run a range of bike revival events with grants of up to £1,000. And Tesco Bags of Help has already funded 780 projects in Scotland, sharing over £4 million between them. They fund a huge variety of projects that bring benefits to the community. And the Royal Voluntary Service, with funding from ASDA Foundation, has been able to give out grants worth over £84,000 to 100 sheds over the past 3 years. Big Lottery Fund Scotland has a range of funding programmes which can support men's sheds type activity. And the main fund that they advise men's sheds apply to is Awards for All Scotland. This can provide funding between £500 and up to £10,000 for up to 12 months. So, Presiding Officer, the men's shed movement is a growing phenomenon. It's fantastic to see the work that everybody is doing. And in my South Scotland region, across Dumfries and Galloway, it has seen the men's sheds grow steadily since the Dalbeattie men's shed was first opened its doors back in 2011. There are now 6 men's sheds across the local authority area, and I'm pleased to hear that there are plans in place to develop more over the years to come. And Dalbeattie's men's shed was named the best in the UK at the UK Men's Sheds Association Shed of the Year 2017 Awards. And last summer, Sir Billy Connolly popped into the Dalbeattie men's shed when he was filming a new TV project. He was very interested in the Scioch utility car replica that Dalbeattie men's shed is building. And the Rins men's shed at Stonykirk and the Glenkens men's shed in Balmaclellan are 2 sheds that I will be visiting hopefully in the near future. And I was happy to speak at the Dumfries men's shed at Noble Hill for their open day last summer. Presiding Officer, good health is based on many factors, including feeling good about yourself, being productive and valuable to your community, connecting with friends and maintaining an active body and an active mind. Becoming a member of a men's shed gives a man, and new women as well, that safe and busy environment without pressure. In conclusion, I encourage men across the country to attend men's sheds because of the education they can receive on health matters, the friendship which they can build, and most importantly, to contribute to their positive mental health. Thank you.
Mark MacDonald, followed by Liam MacArthur.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer, and can I congratulate Christine Graham on securing this debate and opening the debate in her usual inimitable style. I have 2 men's sheds in my constituency, and I want to say a little bit about each of them because their stories are somewhat different in terms of the progress that they have each made. Following the election in 2016, after going home and dropping my kids off at school, I went straight to Dice Community Centre, where Dice Men's Shed were formally opening their workshop, which they had been granted a sole use of a room within the community centre to develop. When they first formed in July 2014, they were initially allocated 2 rooms for their initial membership of between 8 and 10 local men for social activities such as darts, pool and board games. But these rooms were shared with other groups at different times of the day. Following discussions with the local authority, they were allocated a sole use of 1 room, which they have established a workshop mainly for woodwork. And Davy Walker, the Secretary of Dice Men's Shed, advises me that their membership has now grown to approximately 30 from Dice and the surrounding communities, meeting 3 mornings a week, with usually between 18 to 20 individuals attending on at least 2 of those 3 mornings. Their activities have expanded. They now include indoor bowls and also a musical group. And those who partake in the workshop activities, while generally making items for their own use, have occasionally made outdoor play equipment for local children's nurseries and also planters for the local shops in the community as well. So the Men's Shed in Dice is also about giving back to the community and being involved in the community efforts within the community of Dice. Their strapline and the strapline of Men's Shed is making friends, and Davy advises that the friendship formed among the members is most evident, particularly amongst those who have lost their partners. And I think the point has been made about impact of retirement, loss of partners, and isolation and loneliness that can impact upon men, and how Men's Sheds act as an antidote to that. Bridge of Dawn Men's Shed is the other men's shed in my constituency. It began 2 years ago, but they currently don't have premises. They have around 30 members, but are struggling to offer activities on a regular basis as a consequence of their lack of premises. They have been gifted a storage unit by Jim Wright of Securistore, a business in Bucksburn in my constituency. But they're currently trying to secure £2,000 in order to move that unit, and are seeking planning permission for it to be based behind the Alec Colley Sports Centre in Bridge of Dawn. They advise me that they've had a difficult journey to get things moving, and that it could take up to 4 years to get the shed up and running properly. One of the members on their board is a local GP who believes that there ought to be consideration given to how NHS funds could perhaps support and fund the work of men's sheds. And I think there's a particular case perhaps for some of the additional finance that's being directed towards mental health to be considered in relation to men's sheds. A report which Age Scotland have highlighted in their briefing to us shows that for every £1 spent on men's sheds, there's around £9 of social return. And I think it can't be underestimated the potential for men's sheds to be viewed as a form of social prescribing, which can help to encourage men to become more active, or to remain active, tackle isolation and loneliness, and therefore bring greater benefits as a result of that. So I hope that's something that might be given greater consideration, both in terms of how finance is directed and supports the work that men's sheds do, but also in terms of how local GP practices view men's sheds as an option when faced with individuals who may be suffering from loneliness, isolation or stress, as a means by which to address that, rather than perhaps following the traditional medical model.
Liam MacArthur, followed by Elaine Smith.
Thank you very much indeed, and can I too congratulate Christine Graham on securing the debate, and after her remarks maybe suggest that the men's shed in the borders investigate in securing CCTV cameras around their premises, if not checking the locks on their doors and windows. Can I also wish Ken Hughes well as he takes up her encouragement to join the mess shed after his imminent retirement later on this evening. Despite its growth in popularity and geographic reach over the years, this does remain a largely unsung success story, one we should be doing more to shout from the rooftops. And before offering some thoughts on the positive impact that Orkney's Men's Shed has had in my own constituency under the stewardship of Morgan Harkis and an excellent committee, I'm tempted to declare an interest on each and every occasion that I visited the Orkney Men's Shed in Finston, and indeed when popping along to their stalls at various agricultural shows last summer. I seem to have come away with a raffle prize. Unlike recent Euro lottery winners, my cumulative winnings are not yet life-changing, but they have helped break a losing streak in local charity raffles going back many years. As for Men's Shed themselves, though, it is no exaggeration to say that they have proved to be life-changing. Certainly there's tangible evidence, including in Orkney, that they can help improve the quality of life of shedders, whether through reducing the risk of loneliness and isolation, as Ian Gray and Jenny Gilruth and others identified, or in helping individuals enjoy better mental health. This is borne out by Age Scotland's survey of shedders in 2017. The overwhelming majority of respondents pointed to the same benefits they got from the men's shed: more active, made friends, gained a sense of achievement, feel more involved in the local community, learned new skills, all adding up to physical and mental health improvements. And this is something we should be making more of a song and dance about, but also something that demands greater recognition and greater value attached to it than seems to be the case at present. Scottish Men's Sheds Association, as Mark MacDonald reminded us, found that for every £1 spent on the Whitehill Men's Shed in Aberdeenshire, there was a return of over £9 in terms of health and social care and community learning outcomes. And this can't be atypical. Yet still we hear of problems that men's sheds have, not least in securing premises. Orkney's Men's Shed is fortunate in that it does now have a permanent home in Finston, thanks to the generosity of local fisherman Tam Harkis. But this came only after lengthy and ultimately unsuccessful negotiations with the local council over another site. Since moving in 2017, such has been the growth in membership and demand that Orkney Men's Shed is already having to look at extending its building, as well as creating much needed extra space. This would also allow for better disabled access. Unfortunately, the local group will need to cover the full planning costs in addition to the cost of the work itself. This fundraising pressure is relentless for a voluntary organisation like the Men's Shed. Thankfully, the Orkney public has responded with consistent generosity to appeals for donations and funding. In return, the Shedders have provided support to local schools, charity shops, the guides and individuals within the community. However, as I said in Parliament last month, and as I think Mark MacDonald was rightly focusing on, I think there is a strong argument for looking at whether men's sheds should be able to bid in for health and wider social care funding. This is the approach that's been taken in Australia, and it certainly seems to be meriting consideration here too. Meanwhile, Orkney's Men's Shed goes from strength to strength, with a membership up to 140 and growing at a rate of 3 or 4 a month. Open 2 days a week, attendance at sessions averages around 35. It is making a real difference, and there is ambition and appetite to do more. All men's sheds are different, but they share an ability to foster friendships and enhance well-being. As Andy Swain of Orkney Men's Shed put it, for many local shedders, the shed has improved their life and given them a sense of purpose. For that alone, I offer my thanks to the Men's Shed movement and wish all current and future shedders, as well as the shed movement, every success in the future. Thank you.
Elaine Smith, followed by...
Thank you, Presiding Officer, for squeezing me at the end, and thank you to Christine Graham for bringing this debate to the Chamber this afternoon. I welcome the opportunity to speak on this topic because I'm very much a supporter of the expansion and creation of men's shed across the country. In my constituency of Galloway and Western Fries, there's men's sheds operating in Dalbeattie, Balmaclellan and Stonykirk. And as others have mentioned, men's sheds are hugely beneficial to the communities we represent in a number of ways. For example, as we've heard, tackling social isolation. And it's difficult anywhere in the country, however, there's additional barriers to overcome in rural communities where people can often feel and find it a struggle to integrate into social situations simply because there's not the resources to deliver activities that suits their needs. However, having paid a visit to the award-winning men's shed in Dalbeattie last year and scheduled to go again this Easter, I've seen the hugely positive role that men's sheds can play in creating friendships and providing men with activities with great benefits in working on projects with an identifiable goal. And that goal might be to learn a new skill or put those existing skills to create something new, or indeed pass those skills on to others. It's important these community organisations know that their contribution to society is very much welcomed and that support will be there for them. I welcome that the Scottish Government have provided £75,000 to the Scottish Men's Shed Association to provide practical support and guidance to existing and new sheds with health and safety and organisational issues. Now, I know this debate is largely about celebrating men's sheds. However, having listened closely to local organisations and in Dalbeattie in recent weeks, it's not fair to say that among some shedders, there have been concerns about the potential for the SMSA to overly influence the future direction of men's sheds. We must never forget the reason why we have so many and why they work so well. And at the moment, that's because they're self-sufficient and they're completely run by the shedders themselves and their unique, bespoke projects focusing on the priorities in their local communities. A few weeks ago in the Chamber, I raised these concerns with Christina McKelvey, and I hope she remains committed to working closely with MSPs like myself who have a shared interest in promoting and encouraging new men's sheds, and I do welcome her positive response to my questions. As Christine Graham has said, the last thing the men's shed operations need is a one-size-fits-all approach, bound by red tape, And whilst I have no doubt that they're all well intended, shedders don't potentially need potentially restrictive good practice obligations from the Scottish Government or from anywhere else to secure funding and support, whether that's from the Government or from other funding bodies. Whilst there is a recognition that support should be given to individual sheds to help with policies such as insurance and health and safety and fire risks and so on, they should not have to operate to a standard blueprint that's based on another man's shed in a completely different part of Scotland. And I do welcome the 3 years project the Big Lottery have funded to Galloway Caledonian University, looking into the developmental challenges of men's sheds in Scotland, as well as the health and well-being impacts of shed activities. It is, however, still concerning that only 6 sheds across Scotland are being analysed out of the 170 we have in operation, and the research appears only to be looking at the successful establishments of sheds and not at those who have unfortunately not been successful for whatever reason. Because we need to learn the lessons from those that have failed as part of ensuring that new projects will be successful and be aware of the mistakes that others have made. So I hope over the course of the next 3 years, the project research won't just be limited to a mere 6 successful sheds. I'd like to finish by stressing my thanks to the men's shed organisations across the country and give them my full backing. However, I think it's only right that we have an open and honest discussion about the future direction of the SMSA and make sure we all work together to address the concerns that have been raised. Organisations such as the Dalbeattie Men's Shed, while being self-sufficient, have now grown to over 50 members, and we don't want to add additional red tape around funding which might stifle that growth. I'm very much looking forward to my upcoming visit to them, and I know that they will take a keen interest in today's debate. Men's sheds have come a long way since they started 14 years ago. Indeed, as we've already heard, the concept has travelled all across the world. I hope we can continue to build on their success, especially in rural communities where they have provided a great social and well-being focus point for so many people.